Hello, today is Friday, April 3rd. Welcome to episode 578 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI advisory member Lester Munson. I am joined by 3 of our best senior fellows, Algene Sajari, Matthew Hyman, and Jessica Jones. Folks, we are talking about space, the Artemis 2 mission on its way to the moon right now as we speak on Good Friday. And by the way, happy Good Friday to everyone who observes this important day in the Christian faith. We are talking about this space mission. 4 people aboard the Orion spacecraft at this point, 3 Americans and a Canadian. The Orion space capsule was built by Europe, so there's some very international aspects to this interplanetary mission. Plenty of things to talk about. U.S. cooperation with its friends and allies, how important that is. It gets short shrift of late, but here we are doing this amazing thing, sending 4 people on a mission that will take them around the moon and back to Earth in 10 days in a capsule the size of 2 minivans put together. 4 people, 2 minivans. You guys do the math. It's 10 days. I think our thoughts and prayers go out for them for a lot of reasons.
The toilet already broke.
Couple of fun facts. Artemis was a Greek goddess, and she was the twin sister of Apollo. And of course, the last time we went to the moon, it was the Apollo mission. That was 50 years ago. I do vaguely remember us landing on the moon back in the early 70s. I was very young. I can't remember details, but I remember everyone being very excited. In any event, Algene, I want to go to you first. This is a fun Friday episode. This is not strictly foreign policy stuff, but there is a lot of international aspects to the issue we're talking about today. Exploration of the solar system. This could be the beginning of a big project, putting a base on the moon, and then using that to go to Mars, perhaps. There's a lot going on here. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'm going to start with the fun stuff because I was really excited to learn that this was a topic today because my son and I went to see the Super Mario Brothers Galaxy movie on Wednesday, and it was, of course, timed perfectly with the launch. And we completely geeked out comparing the space scenes in the movie to real-life space mission yesterday, looking at the mission and digging into it. So I'm really excited to actually talk about it from a slightly more adult perspective. And I think despite all of the criticisms of this program, many of them quite valid, the criticisms are on the readiness and timing and the cost, as well as the private sector involvement. I think it's really pretty exciting, nevertheless. And it's important from a U.S. national security perspective. That's the question that we should posit, whether or not it is important. I think it's important because, after all, it's been 54 years. And the only reason we did it in the first place, the first time 54 years ago, was to really flex our muscles against Russia, right? And so why are we doing it now? I think it's because, we're in a world where China is racing to establish a permanent foothold near the moon's south pole. So we can't really afford to watch from the sidelines while others define the rules of space. There's plenty of resources there. We hear that the goal is sort of to eventually get to Mars, but also there's water somewhere on the moon, deep down inside, other resources there. So I think this is a mission that will show that the U.S. is leading the way in this space exploration. I also think it's an important lesson, though, because looking at the diversity of the team, there's been some criticism about the diversity of the 4 astronauts that are on the craft right now. I really think it's an important reminder. I'm going to take it back to my son, that we invest in STEM, in science and engineering programming, because, again, we are supposed to be leaders. I bet every single Chinese child right now is learning and diving deep into science and technology and energy engineering education programs. And, they're definitely leading the way when it comes to those programs, and we should be investing in that education program.
Matthew, Algene, of course, brings up some very serious issues about competition with China. Here we are, including Canada in our important adventure. we're collaborating with the Europeans on the construction of the various components of the mechanisms here. Seems like it's like we're doing the right thing. Is this America first? Is this Wilsonian cooperation? What the heck is going on here, buddy?
I think this is a classic case of American leadership. So it's wonderful that we have contributions from our allies, Canada and Europe, and those are still important allies, and they will be important allies to us 10 years from now, notwithstanding the current political moment. But I think it also is it's reflective of American leadership. So without American leadership in terms of investment, the NASA program, none of this happens. And I think the other part of this too is this is what great nations do. They explore, they push the boundaries of whether it's physical frontiers or scientific frontiers. And that's what America should be doing. It's what we have traditionally done since our founding. There was sponsorship for the Lewis and Clark expedition across the West. And America has always been a leader when it comes to this stuff, and we should continue to lead. It's in our national interest, and it's just part of who we are, and it inspires the next generation of people that will break through to new frontiers, whether it's earthbound or otherwise.
Jones, you share a name with a crime-fighting comic book hero. And
who hasn't been to space, though. So
who has not been to space. But I can't help but think, here, we're sending 4 people into outer space. They could get zapped with a cosmic ray and come back as the Fantastic Four. The commander's name is Reed, which is, I'm pretty sure, the same name as the guy in the Fantastic Four comic book. I think the Canadian is the most likely to come back as the Thing, the guy that basically is built out of rocks when he comes back. What are your so all right, so obviously I'm kind of joking around, but it is a fun Friday. It's also
I was
Good
like, oh
Friday.
gosh, I haven't seen Fantastic Four in like 15 years. I don't know any of these characters.
What are we thinking about the cultural impacts of this important space flight?
I think first to, Matthew's point and Algene's, the NSI team, we went and saw Project Hail Mary when it came out a few weeks ago. And, watching Artemis to launch, it inspired me to go watch JFK's speech at Rice when he talked about, to exactly Matthew's point, both Americans, but just humankind, like, why do you climb high mountains? How mountains? Why do you explore? And that feeling, it's just awe-inspiring, right? Like the feat of knowledge and work that goes into something like that, I think is inspiring to us. It should, to Algene's point, it's inspiring to the children. They interviewed a bunch of children at the launch pad talking about going to the moon. And it hopefully inspires the next generation of what's possible and what they can, the work it takes to get there. So I think that's incredible. And I think, the president set out space is a national security domain, right? This isn't just about exploration for exploration's sake. And I think that's why we talk about it on the show. The president has laid out that he intends not only for us to visit the moon, but to set up a permanent outpost on the moon. And in the Artemis Accords, the U.S. and a bunch, dozens of other countries are out setting out kind of peaceful resolve. But the point is to find resources on the moon. And we're in a competition with China to do it. China and Russia are not part of the Artemis Accords. In fact, they're helping each other when it comes to space exploration. And, the worrisome point, to Algene's point, is China is an engineering state. You can marvel at their manufacturing prowess. We talk about that here and rebuilding manufacturing capacity here. But, we might be in the lead when it comes to innovation and being the first. This isn't about, space exploration isn't about the first to get out there, right? It's about long-term sustainable infrastructure and who's going to be able to build that. And so I think this is a real race, and I don't think the outcome is determined yet. And to Algene's point, there's a lot of talk about how we fund it. As much as the Trump administration has pushed for space exploration, it's also cut the budget for NASA, right? And so we rely a lot more on commercial technology, but not sure commercial technology is going to be able to sustain a lunar outpost. And so how we actually get there is still very much up for debate, as much as that's not a fun Friday topic. Whether or not we're supposed to be there by 2030, guys. So I don't know if we're going to have a base. It's 4 years away. I don't know how likely that is. We keep getting delayed, so I'm not sure we're going to hit that roadmap.
I think the original Apollo program was 6 years from President Kennedy announcing it to a man landing on the moon, right? Mm-hmm. So there's we can do this, folks. Also, if you kind of cut, we're not mathematicians here, but if you nor budget experts necessarily, but if you look at the cost of sending things into outer space, it is vastly cheaper now than it was 50 years ago when we were doing the Apollo program. So in a lot, like as much as I regret the fact that we weren't in space through most of my life, that we made this amazing launch to the moon when I was a tiny kid, launches to the moon when I was a kid, and then 50 years of low Earth orbit type activities like the space shuttle and the space station and that kind of thing. It was not quite as practical as we would have wanted it to be, but now the costs are much lower. It is feasible for us to do these things in a way that is congruent with still a robust federal government budget that does a lot of things for a lot of people.
Less to your point that they're living in this 2 minivan like thing, and we just watched Project Hail Mary with all of this space inside of his I guess I'll say container. I'm like, how do we get to that? Because that looks a lot more comfortable than what our 4 astronauts are dealing with. We got
to get those little bacteria that can launch the spacecraft out at almost the speed of light. Right? Did
you guys see the news that Outlook also failed already on Artemis, and so they had 2 Outlook applications running, and they couldn't get it either to work, and they had to radio for help.
That's just like my office computer. I had the same Outlook problem. Okay, folks, very exciting stuff. U.S. going back to space, humans going back to space, getting to the moon. It's great, not just for our country, it's great for our species. Elon Musk has a point when he says, if we're just confined to Earth, that does kind of restrict the possibilities of our species surviving. So it is good that we're thinking about other heavenly bodies to go to. All right, that's a wrap. Thanks as always to Kelly Crowley, Grace Trice, Claude Jennings, the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us on Monday, April 6th for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast to get you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debate shaking up America. We're on YouTube. Check out our channel there for a view of our smiling faces. If you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.